Welcome to KLEAN Radio, the show about addiction and how to overcome it, featuring celebrity and professional interviews with people in recovery and how successful treatment has brought remarkable changes in their lives. With your hosts, Andrew.
I got married for the third time, and the over-under between all my friends was 15 months.
And Judah.
Well, it sounds profound if it doesn't make sense.
I guess so.
That's what I've learned about profoundness.
Break free of those habits that are controlling you. Life is waiting. Come and get it. KLEAN Radio starts now.
Headphones. I think that's probably what the...
Welcome to KLEAN Radio. How are you doing, Judah?
I'm good. So the extra minute they gave us, we just lost.
I think so.
Yes.
Whatever. KLEAN Radio. Here we are. We're a show about addiction recovery. Welcome, audience. We're welcome to have you back. Hopefully you're listening again from last week. We're on every Sunday night at 8, and we're here talking about addiction recovery issues, either your issues or issues that we talk about here in the studio.
And I am Judah Friedman. I've been sober a little over 13 years, and Sunday nights, it's a rough night for people out there with alcoholism, with addiction, with family members going through it. It's Sunday night, and usually this is like the culmination of bad weekends that happen to people, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, we could actually get most of our calls at our treatment center on Monday. I've been doing this work for over 20 years, treating people with addiction and mental illness and both drug abuse and alcoholism. And there's a lot of people out there suffering right now. So if people want to call in, it's a great time to call in.
Yeah, and it's also, there's so many, we have a great guest tonight, and one of the things that she deals with is women in treatment. And I know that there are women listening right now that probably are a little scared to call. This is probably one of the hardest subjects to talk about is addiction and treatment. It's one of the hardest things to say, I need help. So if anybody's out there, they're driving around, they're listening on the radio, they're listening in their house, you could call us. You could go to KLEANradio.com or KLEANtreatmentcenter.com. We're open 24/7, and we're here to help, and we're here to answer any questions you might have. And we've had some great callers. We've had some great callers call about Al-Anon. We've had some great, which is about family members. We've had some great caller about, that he was addicted to crack and he wanted to stop smoking it. So, there are.
So give us a call.
Give us a call.
Number's 888-539-2980.
What is that?
888-539-2980.
Say it again.
888-539-2980.
That sounds good. And who are you?
My name is Andrew Spanswick.
Yes, and people might have seen you last week on...
I was on Dr. Drew's Life Changers.
Stop finishing my sentences.
I know,
yes.
it's my new thing now.
And what was it? What was it?
We actually had the DeBarge family on, who were famous singers in Motown.
Yeah.
And
great song, All Night Long.
All Night Long, yeah. All Night Long.
Was that the song?
Yeah, it was their big hit.
Yeah.
And they had 4 top 40s, I believe. Yeah.
Or is it Listen to the Rhythm of the Night? No,
was that too?
No,
All Night Long was Lionel Richie. Gosh,
yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
One of them.
I treated them. I didn't help them sing. Yes. Anyway, but Bunny was on with Dr. Drew, and she did very well. She came in for a program, stayed 2 months, and had a remarkable recovery. And they had the follow-up show just a couple days ago on Friday.
And people could catch the show, Dr. Drew's Life Changers. And it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool that you got to do that. You got to be on one of these shows, and you got to help people. So
yeah, the shows are interesting. I think sometimes daytime television tends to minimize sort of the whole process of treatment. You see sort of people at their worst, and then you see them at their best at the end, which is great, but it doesn't really show the process of treatment. And I think that's an interesting thing that needs to be shown more on television.
Well, I mean, it's sort of amazing, though, because it's like you get 2 things in the daytime, or you get a lot of the daytime is a weird time. It's like you get those shows, and then half the week you get the Conrad Murray trial, you get the Lindsay Lohan thing, and you get, and then you have the doctors on. So it's sort of funny. It's like this.
Yeah, it's amazing how pervasive, though, the issues of addiction and mental illness are in just daytime television. Obviously, it's a pretty major issue. And I'm excited about our guest tonight because she works primarily with women only, which is fairly unique. For long, people thought that alcoholism and drug addiction was only with men. And really, it wasn't until Betty Ford really came out and was a real advocate for women that people realized that women had a lot of problems with alcohol.
Or one of the great movies of the 60s, the 50s, The Days of Wine and Roses. that really changed, I think, a lot of people's perceptions too, is about alcoholism with women.
Because Judah is from the 50s and 60s.
Yes,
Everyone should know that.
I actually am. I actually got this hoodie I am wearing right now. And by the way, you're listening to us live on KLEANradio.com. You're listening to us live on, you might be on KLEANradio.com.
We do stream live.
We do stream live, and you could also listen to us live. And you could find us at KLEAN Radio. You could find us on Facebook at KLEAN Radio. And, let's just go right to our amazing guest tonight, Velvet.
That's right.
Velvet Mangan. I pronounced it correctly.
You did good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I practiced it before the show for about half an hour. I messed up a guest's name one time, and they got a little angry at me.
No, that doesn't bother me.
No, thank you. So if it happens, please.
Okay.
You got to speak up a little bit. Welcome to the studio, Velvet Mangan.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I started Safe Harbor because there was such a significant, there was like 17 men's treatment centers, and there was nothing for women. There was a co-ed facility, and women were getting somewhat violated in their process of trying to get help. So I was 23 years old when I actually founded Safe Harbor with 7 years sober and no money, and was a really bad hairdresser.
And what was Safe Harbor?
Safe Harbor
was sober living,
it started as a sober living, and it became a treatment center after I realized that women were suffering from much more complex issues than just alcoholism and drug addiction, and we're just a complicated beast, and we just need to be, acknowledged.
I was on the board of Friendly House for quite a while. So
yeah.
That's women's only sober living.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so it evolved into a treatment center, and like you were talking about the journey of recovery, we need at least, I believe, at least a year of like the ability to just kind of like find ourselves, find out who we are. And I mean, there's so many things going on in a woman, the hormones, the emotional, the depression, the anxiety, the trauma. I mean, there's just so much core trauma. So if you don't go to the core, then you're just putting a Band-Aid on the issue, and then the shame and the guilt and that self-hatred will just show up again, and she'll have to medicate. I mean,
do you think there's been more addiction with women in the past 10 years?
Well, there's a significant amount of women that are addicted to drugs and alcohol, more so than ever. And did you see in the LA news, it was talking about that addiction is alcohol and drug addiction overdoses are as many as deaths are traffic accidents. I mean, as far as like people are dying more for alcohol and drug abuse than traffic accidents now.
That's horrible to hear. Yeah.
I mean, like I think it's just tragic. And the fact that women the statistics of women getting help haven't changed since the 1970s.
What is the statistic?
The statistics is 6.9 million women are suffering with addiction, and only 1.6% of that population even go to help. And I'm talking about help, not even real help. I'm talking about just going to maybe like a physician and asking for assistance with their addiction or their alcohol problem.
Why do you think that is? Because normally you think about like men are the ones that are like proud and don't want to admit they have a problem, and that's sort of the stereotype in our society.
It's the one area where it switches.
Right? And then in this area, all of a sudden, it's women that cover it up.
Well, women, it's pure shame based. I mean, it's such as everything is about like, I mean, boys will be boys, but girls are sluts. I mean, basically, you talk about stigma, you talk about the energy around a woman. If a woman is a bad mother drinking and using drugs, she's a terrible, terrible person. I mean, that's the consciousness. And how do you get away from the public, like, judgment?
Is it that idea that people are sort of judging and saying, oh, this person is just self-indulgent and only cares about themselves, and they don't understand that addiction is a process that takes people over?
Absolutely. And so then that woman believes that. And so she just hates herself. I mean, because obviously she's not drinking and using drugs because she just feels like partying, because most women do it in complete isolation. They don't party.
Right.
Do you even think that's still the case right now?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've noticed, I mean, you're sober.
Right.
And you're in the 12 steps, or one of the 12-step groups,
Yes.
whichever one. And haven't you noticed that a lot more women are coming in younger and younger?
We are coming in younger and younger, thank God.
Yeah.
But the issues are getting more and more complex. There's 70% of all the girls that I did a statistics. I did this full scope because I was wondering, why is it so hard to fill a women's treatment center? Because the people around the country that I know that own treatment centers, they were telling me that only, I think they're saying like a third of their treatment center was filled with women and the rest were men. So I couldn't understand. So I did this. It took me a year to do this thing. So I did it, and basically, women, 72% of all women that go into treatment have been sexually assaulted. Mm-hmm. And 42% of them have been sexually assaulted more than once.
Right. So well, 1 in 3 of women in general are raped in their lifetime. So, yeah, it's a large portion to start out with.
So can you imagine with the disease of addiction and alcoholism in your mind, thinking that you're no good and that you're worthless, and then
it's your fault.
Yeah, and that it's your fault, and you just have this thinking disorder to be you're born with, and then you add that you're violated and you have no power. You have to medicate that deep pain.
Right. What do you think men don't understand about the trauma of rape and how that leads to addiction? If you were trying to tell a man from a woman's perspective, a woman who owns a treatment center, what would you try and tell the spouse of that woman to try and have him understand that feeling that wife might be going through?
Well, it just validates that self-putrid. I mean, it just validates that consciousness that you're not worth anything, nor are you worth any respect.
Right.
So,
but if I'm the husband, I'm like, I love her now. Why doesn't she?
Because it's in her body. Trauma is in your body. Trauma lives in your body. That's why there's so many beautiful forms of therapy. There's the psychodrama and equine therapy, and the EMDR, because they've really done some research that the body holds on to memory. And so it's, how many times do you hear of all these great women losing their sobriety because they can't understand why they're so screwed up still?
Right.
Because the pain doesn't go away. You have to release it from your body somehow. You have to acknowledge it. You have to reveal it to heal it. And the bottom line is that it's not easy to do that, but there has to be a sense of surrender to then people get body pain and just suffer from so many. How many women do we know in sobriety that end up with Epstein-Barr? It's in their bodies, and they try to bypass it.
You're listening live to KLEAN Radio. You could find us on. You're listening to live to KLEAN Radio. I keep on doing that. You're listening to the KLEAN Radio on KFWB 980. You're in the studio tonight with Velvet Mangan, owner and proprietor of Safe Harbor Treatment Centers. And the number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. Give us a call with any questions you might have. But I think you actually raised a really cool point, which was I'm dealing with a friend of mine right now, a woman, and she was stealing from her husband. She was stealing pain meds. And I was sort of, as she was telling me the story, I was saying, jokingly, don't worry about it. It's all cool. And I realized the shame and the guilt she had from doing this. And as a guy, you're right. You throw it off as a guy. You're like, it's what you did when you were using. But is the shame and guilt she feels about stealing her husband's meds is horrific. Mm-hmm. What do you say to women to get over that?
Well, it's because it's like what happens is we attach to the idea of trying to find some recognition that, yes, we are so terrible. That's kind of what we do as women in addiction, as far as all the women that I've ever known, all the women that I've ever treated. It's like, yes, I'm a terrible, horrible person. And so we hold on to that shame. We hold on to the darkness until somebody gives us permission to absolutely let it go through having other women in our lives that completely understand, and we have to have some sort of a spiritual release and a physical release. It has to happen in our bodies, minds, and our souls and our spirits. But the dark night of the soul and coming up from the ashes is really a woman's journey. It really is.
So, something I've always thought about, a lot of, we're all in the 12-step rooms, and I've noticed a lot of times men that have a hard time staying sober have dealt with abuse, have dealt with, they have a hard time, admitting homosexuality. And so in the same sense, it's very similar with women that have been traumatized. they could stay sober for a while, but eventually you're saying it just comes back to bite them in the butt if they haven't dealt with the trauma.
Absolutely. I had a relapse at 12 years sober. I had such significant trauma and I tried to be the best student I could be. I did everything right, but there was this pain and this suffering of constantly sabotaging my good and never feeling worthy, and always feeling like I was haunted by my own self-hatred. And my boyfriends, all my guy friends were just like, keep it simple. Just, everything seemed real simple for them and very complicated for me. So that created more shame for me, because why can't I be like them? So I stayed very silent.
Right.
And then the suffering got so big in me that I created body pain and physical pain, which that's how it manifests. And so I started to take pain medication. And then that pain medication, being that I'm an addict, I substituted that for a spiritual experience, and the addiction took me over again. So now I have 12 years again.
So how did you get out of that?
Well, through mass darkness, and my son did an intervention on me, 7-year-old little son, as I lie there in the dark room, feeling very sorry for myself and just immersed in self-pity. My son came in with big tears in his eyes and said, "Mama, when you believed in God, you weren't sick, and when you stopped believing in God, you got sick." He said, "Would you pray with me?" He begged me to pray with him, and I knew at that point that I needed to be a good mother, and so I ripped off the fentanyl patches and threw the morphine bottle away. And
So you're doing some hardcore opiates.
yes, I was.
Wow. And so how did you actually recover post that, though, besides that moment of insight that you needed to get some help?
Well, I realized that I had to have a deep spiritual experience. Like I needed to have a relationship with my higher power, not a just a light version of a relationship with a doorknob.
Right.
It needed to be a real clear relationship, because my ego was not going to be able to how do you come back from a 12-year relapse when you think, that you are your sobriety date, and you've given that your entire, identity.
Which I think a lot of people mistakenly do.
Well, that of course mistakenly do, because basically all we have is a daily reprieve, and it's all contingent on our spiritual connection. And I became so afraid that somebody would find out about my shame that I couldn't be me anymore. So
it was having to get into that and tell somebody that?
Yes,
or
I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for not being perfect.
Right.
I had to forgive myself for the shame that I felt like I had. I had to absolutely forgive myself, and I had to forgive my beliefs too, because I had a whole lot of beliefs around a lot of garbage that really wasn't true. Right. So I had to go and do a lot of deep work, and I did it because it was like I was starving and I didn't want to die.
So the woman that's out there listening tonight, and she's, drunk in bed, or, just after a weekend, and or maybe she's been taking a lot of opiates, a lot of pills, a lot of painkillers, right? Or, what would you tell her?
I would just say that whatever your mind is telling you is a lie. You are so worth it. You are magnificent. And the bottom line is that within 7 days, you will feel like a totally different person. If you just surrender, go to the nearest detox, call this phone number, absolutely call and get the help that you need today. You're worth it. And that there's no condition that's possibly could keep you from this peace that I have, this love that I have for myself. The only thing that could keep you from that is if you don't pick up that phone.
And what would you say to the husbands that are going through this? Because I think it's really hard also on husbands sometimes that are like, I don't know what to do with my wife. And I think because, again, you, Andrew, you were talking about like men deal with things in different ways.
I think many of their whole things in general, they get very angry.
Right.
At least that's been my experience.
Because they're terrified.
They're terrified.
Right.
They don't know what
on
to do.
so many levels.
And men tend to want to fix things.
Of course.
Here's the problem. I got a hammer and I got a
so all that
screwdriver,
does,
and I'm going to fix this.
Right.
Then they have no idea how to fix that.
Do you deal with a lot of husbands?
Absolutely. We have a lot of husbands. And by the time they get to us, there's I don't know how to explain it. What happens when they walk through the doors is that they take the biggest deep breath because they know that now that woman is now going to be immersed with the power and the energy that she's going to need to really find herself and to meet herself for the first time. But that gentleman is just got to let go and love her because she doesn't mean to do it. It's not her intention to cause him harm. And the more he is angry, the more shame-based she'll become, and the further away from her sobriety she will get.
Right.
He has to let go. He has to love her.
And what do you suggest that the husbands do?
I suggest that the husbands get the specialist involved right away, get an interventionist, get the support that they need immediately.
But once they're in the door
of treatment, they need to go. I believe in therapy for couples. I believe that basically they need to get their feet on the ground, get at least 30 to 60 days sober, and then I think that therapy for the husband and wife is essential. I think they need to work on the issues right away.
A lot of people, they say, "Oh, therapy," and I think a lot of people that I've known that have, failed in treatment, they go once or twice, and they think it's a contest.
Yes.
Like the husband and the wife come in, and they think that one of them has to win and one of them has to lose. And I've always found it a struggle to get, join with both parties and then work together, especially if one is the identified patient per se. So with women, I think it's particularly difficult if the wife is the alcoholic or the drug addict or both, and she comes in with the husband. Then I've always seen the husband's always trying to blame the wife for everything that's wrong. Mm-hmm. So, in your work, how do you work to try and show people that there's that systematic pattern working between the two, and they're both mutually responsible for their lives?
Well, first we have to get her on her feet because she needs to understand she's not all at fault. So our focus is to get her a sense of herself first and to get her grounded so that when she does have that conversation with him, she won't meet him with the same consciousness that she was when he dropped her off.
Right.
So that's important.
You're listening to KLEAN Radio on KFWB. Then we're in the studio tonight with Velvet Mangan, and the number here is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980, 888-539-2980. You could stream us live at KLEANradio.com and see what Andrew and I look like, and you might be shocked.
You can see Velvet next week. We'll post on Thursday.
You could see Velvet tonight because we are
streaming.
We
are streaming live.
And it's really amazing. There are a lot of people out there. There are a lot of people out there right now, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show. It's Sunday night, and they don't know what they're going to do. This is a really depressing time for a lot of people. So much. It's like a Sunday night.
It's holidays.
It's the holidays. The weather is. We're coming up, right? We're coming up, as they say, on the golden triangle of holidays. And if things aren't going right, this is a really rough time of year. And I'm really honored to have you in the studio tonight because you do so much work with women. And I do think they're the forgotten people sometimes. It's like, and I say this often when I speak or I share, is that my mother was like it's like the women that lose sleep at night over their sons.
Yes.
And it's always, I sometimes think the women get forgotten.
Yes. And we stay in that forgotten role because that's what we think we're supposed to do. Because that is our role. So that's why we suffer in silence. We suffer in such despair, and you would never know all the women that are suffering right now that just have no voice, no sense of themselves.
So we've been sharing the sadness. Now share with us the hope.
The hope is that hundreds of thousands of women are sober and doing the work. And actually, I would say not necessarily, I don't want to call it the work. I would say setting themselves free. I like to say it that way because work is the idea that I'm going to do something. When I came into the 12-step program and my relapse happened, it was more like at this point now I can let the magic happen in me. I don't have to be anything for anybody else. I need to be independent of the good opinion of others and live the life that my higher power intended for me to live, which if I can stream inside of me this love and this pure self-acceptance, then that's going to shine bright into all the eyes that I meet on a daily basis, and it won't be limiting. And that is what I can be in the gift. And that's when you share that with someone else and they share it with someone else, because I don't believe in judgment. I think the worst thing you can do is judge somebody. So my whole perspective is stay in the love. You know, you need to stay in the love. Is it loving? Is it kind? And is it necessary? I think that that's core to relationship building with women, because we have, well, for one thing, women feel that other women are competition. So we're terrified of each other.
What is that? It's like, people always say a woman walks into a bar, and who's the first person she looks at? The other women.
Absolutely.
Not even the guys. Why do women compete so much? Do you know?
Because there's such a deep sense of self-hatred. I mean, it's like, well, okay, you walk through I was walking in the airport the other day. There's a magazine. What does the magazine say? Well, look who has cellulite. I mean,
right.
It's like, how are you supposed to be beautiful? How are you supposed to be enough? So, of course, I'm going to look into a room and go, okay, there's my competition. Am I prettier than her? Am I smarter than her? Am I better than her? So
that's why I hang out with Andrew.
Oh,
Because,
perfect.
I do think we're becoming more self-obsessed as a culture. And I think, I remember in about 84, 85, men started getting marketed to fairly heavily.
GQ.
Right? Like GQ came out more and more. Like Calvin Klein was big into advertising.
Remember Marky Mark?
Yeah, and that had never happened before.
I can't be that,
Right? I mean,
Lady Whitey's.
I think the Marlboro Man was like the only real sort of like male, and Marlboro originally a women's brand, which is ironic. Yeah, but anyway,
but it's true. I've heard this often, and I'm sure so have you, Andrew. I'm sure you have too. Is women in the 12 steps have a hard time with other women many times finding sponsors and all that stuff.
Yes, because the bottom line is that unless you do that release inside of you, and you know that other woman is you, because the bottom line is that if I don't look at you with that pure love, I'm not going to be able to see me with that pure love. I'm going to only be able to see you in fear.
Right.
So if I can't forgive you and I can't forgive me, there's no way that I can have peace inside of me.
What would you say are some of the dangers for women when they first get into sobriety? Are there any dangers that they should watch out for?
I would just say of self-hatred, and taking themselves too seriously, meaning not seriously, but don't worry so much. Let it go. It's going to be okay. There's good days, there's bad days. Just keep going. Don't think of it all so black and white, and know that you got a lot of things going on. Like, really, hormones are a big deal.
Right.
Most of my girls, we have calendars, because most of my girls end up relapsing during PMS time. I mean, this is a truth.
There's actually a whole hormone clinic that just started up at UCLA about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And they concentrate, they're doing a lot of research on both menstrual cycle work, but also, of course, menopause. Mm-hmm. And they're finding that women have definitely key indications of drug abuse and substance abuse related to their hormonal imbalances at times.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a reality. So these are certain things that they need to keep conscious of.
So you basically give the same advice to the husbands or the loved ones too, is basically like love.
Yes.
Don't judge.
Yes.
Understand. And I think that's really important what you're saying, because sometimes you don't have to have the answer.
Mm-mm.
And I think for husbands, especially with their wives, that's probably, like Andrew was talking about, that's the hardest thing.
They want it fixed.
Right.
Because what do you want to do when somebody judges you? You want to defend. So basically, it's a natural surviving instinct. So if you love me.
Oh, we got to go for a break. It's okay. You can finish your point.
So if you love me, then I will absolutely surrender rather than have to defend. So you've taken care of the issue.
And with that, you're listening to KLEAN Radio on 980 KFWB.
Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs? Call KLEAN Treatment Center at 888-601-6040 for a free drug test and consultation. A treatment advisor is available to help you administer the test and answer any questions you may have regarding treatment and more. We are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040 or find us online at cleantreatmentcenter.com for your free drug test and the start of a promising future.
Welcome back to Clean Radio. If you or someone you know is in need of addiction assistance, call 800-KFWB 980. That's 800-539-2980. Or go to cleanradio.com. Now, back to Andrew and Judah.
Welcome back to Clean Radio. There's Judah talking.
That is
over me.
officially the worst music rejoiner I've ever had in my life. That sounded like rave mixed with like jump.
I think you took too much acid.
I never did acid.
Really?
Yeah, I
That's
thought about it.
interesting. Really?
You want to know why I never did acid? Because of Pink Floyd.
Oh.
Sid Barrett saved my life. Because I always heard the story that he tripped and that he never came back. He mowed his mother's lawn for the rest of his life. And I was like, that could happen to Sid. It could happen to the Judah. And if you just tuned in, you're listening to Clean Radio. That's Clean with a K. You can find us on Facebook at Clean Radio. You can go to cleanradio.com. You could also give us a call at 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. One more time, Andrew. That's 888-539-2980. And,
if you're out there, and even if you don't want to get on the air but want to call and get some help, you can call this number and we can help you out. We have professionals standing by if you want to talk. But if you would like to call and ask our guests or ourselves a question, you're more than free to give us a call.
And let's welcome back our guest, the lovely and talented Andrew Spanswick. No, just joking. Velvet Mangan from Safe Harbor Treatment. And really a really amazing thing you've done. You've influenced, obviously, thousands of women's lives out there. And do you deal with just addiction? I mean, obviously you deal with addiction, but with food issues or...
Yes. I've never really met a young woman or a woman that doesn't have some form of a self-distorted perception. So,
thank God. I wouldn't be able to get a date.
Right, exactly.
I'm joking. Joke. No, but yeah.
So, I mean, an eating disorder is, I would say at least half of our population, there's an eating disorder, love addiction, and chemical dependency, but chemical dependency is just the symptom of all of the above. So we treat the entire woman.
How much mental illness do you see?
Well, most of the girls have some sort of an anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. So it's common.
Do you think that's one of the things that, trauma obviously will bring on depression. Mm-hmm. Trauma can also bring on anxiety. They
Absolutely.
say like over 50% of the population is suffering or has suffered from a course of major depression or primary anxiety disorder.
Correct.
So a lot of people self-medicate, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's like taking off a tight pair of shoes.
All right. And what do you see most women self-medicating with?
Pills. I mean, it's medications given by a doctor. The study that I did, most of the women go to their primary physician for help.
Right.
That's where they go to get help. They say, I have a problem. That's where maybe they have an alcohol problem, and then the doctor will usually prescribe them an alternative.
I'm anxious, I can't sleep.
Yes.
And then they're on
depressed,
Ambien
yes.
or
many things.
Yeah.
But this is another example where women, it's very different because as us guys, if we went to our primary care physician and we were trying to get medicine, pills, they'd be a little more skeptical than the mother with 3 children going, I'm in a lot of pain. The doctor would be a little more trusting.
Or the 18-year-old.
Right.
I mean, the 18-year-old going, I have anxiety, I'm drinking a lot, I'm having a lot of problems. Well, let's see if we can put you on some Adderall to help with your schooling and give you some Ambien to help you sleep.
It's quite a combination.
Mm-hmm.
The 50s, it was like the weight loss combination, right?
Oh, yeah.
Speed during the day and then benzodiazepines, tranquilizers at night.
That's what they had my mom on that at 14.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that led into some of your own addiction?
Oh, absolutely.
Just being around that and seeing that?
Well, I was born addicted to drugs. So, and I was on phenobarbital till I was 3.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Because I was physically addicted, and then I had a lot of complications
Huh. Do you have seizure disorder? Or?
It was my stomach. I had some surgeries done to my stomach because of my body didn't form the way it was supposed to.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you look great.
Thanks. Pretty hot, right?
Yeah. I know. Hubba.
She's just like, you formed perfectly.
I
all
actually was
inside.
thinking that. And my girlfriend does watch the show.
And not anymore.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Anyway.
No, so I mean, I think those things are just
So our goal here is to get you in trouble as much as possible.
Yeah, that's, first, he didn't believe even I had a girlfriend.
It
I'm
took
going
a
to
while
tell you
to
something
believe
really funny. This is the truth. Andrew and I were driving around last week, and no matter where I go, so I go to the pharmacy to get some Tylenol. We're going somewhere, and my girlfriend, I'm trying to quit smoking, so I've been debating going into Chantix. So she picks
By
up.
the way, just to show that he's an addict, he bought. It was like the mega thing of Tylenol.
I bought a vat.
It was like
I basically
it
bought
was
a vat.
big red giant vat. I couldn't take that much.
I bought a lifetime
Tylenol in my
supply,
lifetime.
and
Right.
and so I'm going to the drugstore. I was out of town last week. My girlfriend went to pick up my Chantix, kind soul she is, and so I go in there last week to pick up Tylenol, and they go, "Is that your girlfriend?" And I go, "Yeah," and they go, "How did you get her?" And
true. Nobody can
constantly
understand.
something I'm constantly hearing, like, and I'm like, what do I look like? Am I that bad?
Hey, all they have to do is go to KLEANradio.com and under your bio and watch the Judah dance.
Yes.
And then people understand what we're talking about.
Conservative.
It's hard to
or
believe.
my political views, right?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that a girl that hot would be into you.
Yeah, go
I mean,
figure.
your voice is good on the radio.
Yeah.
That must be it. She must close her eyes a lot.
That's exactly what it's about, and I never want her to go to Al-Anon. No, I'm joking around. She actually came to hear me speak the other night. So,
With her eyes closed.
how long do you recommend for women to get treatment? Because I mean, I'm sure men have the biggest thing with men. You probably we hear at KLEAN is, I got to work. I got to get back to work.
Yeah.
What is with women? Is it that I got to get back to the kids, or I got to get back to?
Well, usually it is back to the kids, but a lot of my girls are really young, so it's like 18 to about 25 is my primary age. And we're not just teaching them how not to use alcohol and drugs, but we're teaching them how to live in their own skin. So there's a process to that. So I suggest 90 days minimum to a year. Most of the girls stay, but it's all phases and levels.
Right.
Because I know for me that my nervous system was so shot, and I had to develop a sense of self, and it took me a while to kind of like give myself permission to be me and to figure out what that looked like and what was appropriate and what wasn't appropriate. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I needed to be just bathed with a whole lot of support on a regular basis.
Well, at KLEAN, we offer different levels of care.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the average person out there really understands what like the continuum of care is.
Right.
So, for example, KLEAN Treatment Center is a lot like we have residential treatment centers. So we do 30, 60, 90 days of a treatment where people come and they stay, and they're in a treatment center, and they get seen by a doctor, and they get seen by a psychiatrist, and they get daily groups, and they get exposed to 12-step meetings, and they get exposed to all sorts of different types of therapy, from DBT to CBT to psychoanalytic theory.
Why don't you explain what the heck you just said to the average man out there?
Yeah, there's all
or
these
woman?
different kinds of therapy, and I think it's different kinds of problems need different types of therapy. That's the other
Yes.
thing. I think a lot of people believe that therapy is therapy, and the truth of
Yes.
the matter is there's so many different types of therapy. So that's one issue, and I think it takes real professionals to be able to meet with a client or patient and say, hey, it's going to take me a little while to get to know you, and then we're going to figure out what you need, and then if I can't help you, we're going to find someone that can.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's residential treatment. And before that, you started as a sober living, right?
Correct.
So what does a sober living do for somebody out there listening?
So then a sober living, I call mine a recovery home because there's a lot of sober living homes where it's just a home, where mine is a recovery home. So I'm just going to say, because I insist upon them working a 12-step program, and there's curfews, and there's a lot of structure to it.
Definitely. Not all sober livings are equal.
No,
right?
they're
There's a
not
lot
all equal,
right.
no.
Some people have just been renting houses, people that are sober, without really providing any
Quite a
structure.
few people these days. It's become the new thing.
It's becoming a way for people
Yeah.
to pay their mortgage, I think.
Correct.
But
So
real professionals that have been doing, and that's what we should tell people, I guess, is if you're
Yes.
going to go to a sober living, make sure it's one that's well respected,
absolutely.
that has real professionals there, and that actually has a daily program. So what does a daily program in a sober living house look like?
Well, after they've gone through our treatment center, then they go down to our recovery homes, and basically they go to work or school full time. They have a curfew at 11 o'clock on the weekdays, 2 in the morning on the weekends, which is liberal. I think it's not, not too crazy. So, and they, they're doing normal things. Like they will end up probably getting a boyfriend. I mean, now how do they handle that? We still have SLA meetings, and we have
SLA is to people
love and sex addiction,
right?
And then we have we do. They also still see their therapists and their counselors afterwards. That's just on their own. So it's kind of like their continuum support.
So they become more responsible for their own lives.
Absolutely. So it's more about their self-soothing. They're learning how to manage their own lives. I am really a reasonable sober living home, because I want them to be able to pay for it themselves. Right. So I mean, I could charge a crazy amount of money, but I only charge $700 a month.
Wow.
So, and it's in Orange County, a beautiful, nice little spot. But these are young girls. These are my 18 to 20-some-year-olds, where I'm hoping that they'll have some sense of self and some independence.
You're listening, by the way, to KLEAN Radio on KFWB 980. The number here to call is 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. That's 888-539-2980. We're in the studio tonight with Velvet Mangan, owner and operator of Safe Harbor Treatment Center. If you're out there listening and you have any questions, we understand this is actually a really hard topic to call in about. So if you have any questions or any, go to KLEANradio.com, go to KLEANtreatmentcenter.com. I'm guessing you are Safe Harbor. treatmentcenter.com?
SafeHarborHouse.com.
Safe Harbor, I'm sorry about that. SafeHarborHouse.com. And if you have any questions, we're open 24/7 to answer all your questions. If you're driving around tonight, if you're listening at home and you're going through a rough time, I beg of you to please give us a call. It's totally confidential. And a lot of people have questions. And I think this is one of the scariest things to ask questions about from both sides. So,
absolutely.
And, sorry, Andrew.
Oh, I was just going to say, so we were talking about continuum of care. So you have residential treatment, sober living, and then what do people do? Because you talked about, being out there for 12 years and then relapsing. So that's a long time to be sober. Mm-hmm. And is relapse part of this? I mean, we talk a lot about how relapse is quite often inevitable, and which sounds sort of pessimistic. But a lot of people do relapse, and it's a big part of the illness. There is no cure for addiction that we know of, right?
Correct, but a lot of people don't relapse too. So it's I had to relapse because it was part of my spiritual journey. But it's not always necessary, but it does happen. And I just feel like that just because one of the greatest gifts that somebody gave me was they told me, Velvet, if you went to school for 12 years and then you didn't go to school for 6 months to a year, does it mean you didn't go to school for 12 years?
Right.
It can't mean that.
Right.
So I think in so many ways, we just have to be really careful about how we minimize people's recovery, even if they do relapse.
That's a huge thing you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, because I think that, you can't minimize people's work that they've done.
Well, I've always said that in terms of they they call up KLEAN and they're like, what's your success rate?
Wow.
And I'm like, well, what are we supposed to be measuring in terms of success?
Right.
Well, we went through that in the store the other day. Andrew and I were in the store. I'd seen somebody standing online, and somebody was asking about an old friend of ours, and they're like, oh, I heard, how long are they sober? And Andrew had mentioned an amount of time they were, and they go, that's not what I heard. And Andrew's response, you had a great response, and I can't remember what it was, but the point was even if they did, how comfortable would they feel coming back if this is the support and the love they're going to get? And I think that's extremely important. It's like if people do have a rough time or struggle or relapse, it's okay.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to understand that that's part of the progress. I mean, I really believe it is. I don't believe that there's
sometimes
a hopeless
it's
case.
necessary.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think people need to test it.
Absolutely.
They need to go out and figure out whether or not they really have a problem or not.
And if they don't, that's fantastic. But then there are those who do, and it just can't be about perfection.
Right.
It needs to be about progress, and it needs to be about that you are part of the success. And what would you have been doing that last year if you weren't sober and you did relapse? I mean, meaning it just really is such, you didn't lose anything.
Right. Absolutely not.
Yeah. Just keep coming back.
Exactly. That's right.
And so Safe Harbor is located in Orange County?
It's in Costa Mesa.
Costa Mesa?
Yeah. It's like right near Newport Beach, Huntington Beach. It's right in the middle.
And yet you just moved up to Santa Monica?
I just moved to Santa Monica.
Well, welcome to our side of town.
Well, thank you. I love being here.
What brought you here? Are you going to start a place here? Or?
No. I came here because everything in my life changed. So I just decided that I really wanted to have something new. I really wanted to have a new start. And I wanted to be me, too. When you own a treatment center, you can become really, identified with that treatment center, and you kind of lose your identity in the 12-step world as just being you.
Mm-hmm. I call Andrew Klean.
Yeah.
I don't call him Andrew anymore.
Yeah. Well, he'll have to move soon.
Yeah.
Then.
Starting to look like Mr. Klean a little bit. No. That's Klean with a K. That's a great point you bring up, too, and I think you're not your job.
No, you're not your job. You're not your marriage. You're not your children. You really need to find that authentic self and absolutely adore it. And so I was finding myself in this change that I was going through, newly separated from a long-term marriage. That this could possibly be another one of those crossroads where if I don't develop a relationship even deeper with myself and with my higher power, that it could either be good or bad. So I chose the good. So I came to Santa Monica, which is the Saint Monica, which is the I found out.
Patron saints of homeless people?
No, she's not.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah,
Santa Monica.
She's actually.
Give it a shot.
She's for the heartbroken woman.
Ah, there you go.
Mm-hmm. And it goes in a little further, but it was something. But now I'm not the heartbroken woman anymore.
But I think that's amazing is that I know it's hard, and I think a lot of times, Andrew, I'm sure you're familiar with this, people working in treatment have to really be diligent in taking care of themselves.
Yes.
And separating, the life of work. It's just, it is your job. You're lucky you get to help people.
Yes.
But then you go home, and I think everybody goes through this, actors think it's their, they start believing who they are.
Exactly.
And, I think Lindsay Lohan probably starts believing what would you say to her? And I know we're not talking about Lindsay Lohan. What would you say to a woman that's going through this stuff?
Well, I think that basically she's not her mistakes. She's not her mistakes. She's not what anybody says about her. She's none of those things. She's just a broken little girl who has to find her place again. And she needs to have everything that she thinks that she was or isn't. And we need to find out what's right with her instead of what's wrong with her and start fresh. And she needs to be in an all-women's facility really working on her core issues and completely independent of anybody that could influence her from anything that would be unauthentic to her truest nature, which is the core of her soul, her heart, and just eliminate all the other stuff.
Now, why the all-women facility? I get it with Lindsay Lohan, trust me, but I'm saying...
Unless she had a relationship with a woman.
Right.
Well, it has nothing to do with sex.
Oh, okay.
It's mostly about, there's something, just like we talked about, women are the competition, right? So if you don't heal that relationship with other women, you can't ever heal the relationship with yourself. It's all about a healing. It's all about when you walk into a room and it's filled with women and all you see is love, then you have had that healing. Now you have a beautiful relationship with yourself.
Is there hope for women to have that?
We have it all the time.
Sounds like so many women just are in that place of competition and self-doubt and low self-esteem and, just feel bad about themselves.
Well, I think that...
beautiful women. I meet beautiful women and, just women that are very successful and they're just miserable. Well,
I'm not saying that we're not going to suffer from being women because we're women. And this is a tough world to be a woman in because, like I said, you can't walk through a store without seeing a magazine that says you're not enough. I mean, the world says you're not enough constantly. So we have to be very vigilant
Right,
about
the 500 things you have to do this month.
And I really
Right.
believe it's.
Magazine,
You know
right?
what's funny that you say that? I don't believe it's the world. I believe it's women. Because I mean, Andrew and I, I could say this honestly. We like women. But okay, that sounded.
I'm married.
Yeah, Andrew's married, and
But I do
what
like
mean-
women as.
But we like women.
I like women,
we like
okay.
women to be women, and we don't.
I like guys too, Judah.
Thank you for
Well,
sharing that.
yeah.
No, but I'm saying in the sense that I don't watch the Miss America pageant and think that's what I don't
Yeah.
see Victoria's Secret, the catalogs and go. And I don't think most guys do. I mean, most guys that I know don't look at that stuff and realize and think that's the ideal woman.
Right, but our whole psyche is trained to think that that's what you are looking
Or
for.
it's this objectification.
Yes,
Right.
I mean it's just
It's the
everywhere.
object. It's not the person.
We're not smart enough either. I mean,
Well, that's
you know,
probably true.
I mean,
Um,
I mean, the
I always
education
wanted to see
based.
Judah get castrated.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this moment.
The castration happens after the show.
There'll be no
I'll
show
keep
next
it
week.
pretty.
So what types of therapy do you do to get these things to get that?
Well, first you have to have an intention. So you set an intention. You can't just put a bunch of women in a room together and not set a very strong intention. The intention is love has to be first.
So it's like a mantra,
Yes,
right?
it is. And so if you know that that is what your base is and that you're not going to allow anybody to be mean to one another, and that's the core, and you're
So that's your job to create that sense of safety. I guess
Absolutely.
safe harbor
Yes.
is the name.
there
so-
has to be that sense of safety
Right.
that every woman that walks through the door is going to be welcome with nothing but love and complete acceptance.
So how do you deal with someone that doesn't come in with that attitude?
Well, I'll tell you, she doesn't act that way very long before she completely shifts. She melts.
Right? And
Because
why is
that's
that?
all we're seeking. We're seeking to be loved. We want to be loved, and that kind of unconditional love, where you can act just a complete tyrant, and they love you anyway. And I'm not talking about validating entitlement. I'm talking about validating that human being.
Right.
That just knowing in her eyes, just looking at her deeply, and just saying, you know what, you just forgot. You just completely forgot how magnificent you were. And we're here to remind you.
I see a lot of clients that have borderline personality disorder, which for the average listener is a form of personality traits defined for psychiatrists and insurance companies. But there's a certain type of client, borderline personality, where women are full of self-hatred, and their ability to like or hate things is distorted in extremes. Do you see clients with borderline personality disorder? And that's a very hard disorder to treat. Do you find
Well, I don't claim to treat borderline personality disorder because that's not my specialty. But the bottom line is that it's pretty hard to differentiate trauma from borderline and addiction and alcoholism. They all melt into one. And they say that the reason that women, there's one of the core reasons why women don't get help is they're misdiagnosed. They're given a borderline personality disorder diagnosis instead of soul sickness, and you're completely trying to feed an addiction and alcoholism and self-hatred with this alcohol and drugs. I mean, so it's a spiritual, emotional, physical, it's all of the above. So I don't know that I really want to go into that because I don't know that I
how do you know when you have a client that has something that's beyond what you can treat?
Well, if there's a psychosis that's just beyond our psychiatrists, we recommend and refer out constantly if that's what the case
that's great.
is. Yeah, we don't ever compromise anybody.
So people that have certain mental disorders, they should stay on their medications.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, so you don't believe that people should be 100% off of any kind of medication?
I believe in antidepressants. I have no problem with those. I think that if you have an opinion about that, keep it to yourself as far as I'm concerned.
Right, it's just so funny because I know it's like we have people in 12-step meetings dispensing advice about dispensing advice about relationships that have never been
Try
married,
giving.
that have been
Giving
divorced for
advice.
5 times, and we have people
Right.
giving medicinal advice that have
Correct.
and it's a very scary thing. And I think I actually think it's great because KLEAN and Safe Harbor, you guys actually, it's very give the right word, synergistic. in the sense that,
I would say we have some similarities.
Some similarities, yes. Thank you.
Synergistic would mean we got together and created something more.
Yes.
But maybe we could do that as well.
We're doing it right now.
I mean,
That's right.
You never know.
That's true.
You're no longer clean. I'm going to call you safe.
Clean and safe.
My new pals, clean and safe. And if you
Safe
just
for
turned,
the sea.
that's safe for the sea.
Safe for the
And
sea,
if you just tuned in, you're listening to KLEAN Radio. That's Clean with a K. And you could find us on Facebook, and please like us at KLEAN Radio. And you could also listen to our old shows at KLEANradio.com. And next week you'll be one of our old shows, Velvet. And you could see some of our past guests and see the fun that we have, or that we encourage people have in sobriety. And it sounds like you have that, because you probably have to, because you're getting girls between the ages of 18 and 25. And one of the things you have to encourage there is that there is a fun life.
Absolutely. I mean, I got sober when I was 15, so, my first time around. And if they would have told me I had to join a nunnery, I would have quit. So it's just not that way.
Right.
I mean, it's really painful being a young woman, and then you add alcoholism, drug addiction, eating disorder, depression, anxiety. Come on now. There needs to be a little bit of fun. So it's very important that you have fun, that you let go. It's key.
Most of my patients at that age they're still very enmeshed with their parents.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't separated from their parents yet. They haven't found their own sense of identity. They're still heavily economically reliant on their parents. Do you see a lot of that? And do you bring parents in? Do you deal with that and
Absolutely.
separation issues?
Well, we actually work with the Betty Ford Center in their family program.
That's a great program.
Yeah, it's an amazing program. So that's the program that we work with the families. But we encourage that the families create some independence with the children, because if they don't, then the problems never go away. So the sense of that sense of self is really key.
I'm like, I got lost for a second.
I was lost with you.
Somebody, nothing to do with you.
Stickers
Yeah.
coming in.
We got stickers coming into the studio. We're very high tech. And can you read out loud what that is?
Not till the end of the show.
Not till the end of the show. Okay.
It's a secret.
No. So I was talking today about this somebody. When I was 18 years old, I was in rehab, and I was actually in rehab in Israel. And one of the cool things, I had this drug counselor that took me to I'll be really dating myself right now, but we went to a REM concert where radio had opened for them.
Wow.
And it was amazing because he showed me how to live life. And I think you're dealing with young girls.
Yes.
It's like you said, you only charge $700 a month, so they could learn how to, obviously the part of the reason is so they could learn how to be self-supportive to their own contributions.
Yes. And that's just the sober living house.
Right.
That's not the treatment center.
Right.
So,
Right.
but that's because at that point there has to be a form of I am. This is me. Here I am. This is how I show up in this world. I can get a little job. I can pay my bills, and I can actually be a beneficial presence.
Right. Do you think women can do that? I mean, you see, I would look at men, and they're sort of forced to separate generally from their mothers when they find a girlfriend or a wife.
Hopefully.
Not always, but it seems like more men separate from their parents in a sort of progressive way, because the mother is really the primary bond.
Yes.
Right? So men are sort of pulled away from their mothers. They form another love interest. With women, it's more difficult because they don't have to give up their mother to have a boyfriend or a husband necessarily.
I find that the woman's relationship with the mother is really important to her relationship with herself, just like her relationship to other women. It's such a mirror. It's such a mirror. So if they don't do the work and they don't do the letting their relationship form in a way that is healthy, it stays very toxic. But a lot of moms, are real open to letting go and changing because they don't want their daughters to be sick the way that they've been sick.
How do people find you?
They find me at safeharborhouse.com. They can call 949-645-1026.
Then come to KLEAN on Facebook or KLEANradio.com, and we'll have your information up there as well. It's been a great show.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you
very
for letting me
much.
come. I really had fun.
And you've definitely enlightened a lot of people tonight. Really, Velvet Mangan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you're listening to KFWB News Talk 980.
Have a good night.
Do you suspect a loved one is abusing drugs? Call KLEAN Treatment Center at 888-601-6040 for a free drug test and consultation. A treatment advisor is available to help you administer the test and answer any questions you may have regarding treatment and more. We are here to help. Call us today at 888-601-6040 or find us online at KleanTreatmentCenter.com for your free drug test and the start of a promising future.